In my previous life, the junior sister complained to me, crying about how strict our master was, forcing her to swing her sword 5,000 times every day. I comforted her, saying, "The master is doing this for your own good." I, too, went through the same rigorous training back in the day, which is why I have the cultivation I possess today. Little did I expect that she would immediately run out of the mountain gate in tears and tragically meet with an accident. When the senior brother returned from his training journey, he shattered my golden core with a single strike of his sword. "You're nothing but a golden core cultivator. What gives you the right to show off in front of our junior sister?" I became a cripple, was driven out of the mountain sect, and died a miserable death. When I opened my eyes again, I had been reborn back to the moment when my junior sister came to me in tears. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now the story begins. Slap, slap, slap. The little junior sister outside the door, weeping and wailing, kept knocking on my door. "Senior sister, senior sister, are you there? Open the door for me." My disordered breath nearly caused me to lose control of my cultivation. I raised my hand and set up a barrier, cutting off all sounds from the outside. Even the tranquil and calming sandalwood incense in the room could not quell the turbulent thoughts swirling within me at this moment. I am the second senior sister of Fuyu Mountain. The first senior brother, Sai Yang, above me, pays no heed to worldly affairs and devotes himself entirely to the pursuit of the Tao. Before our master went into seclusion to ascend, he entrusted me with the management of the mountain's disciples, especially to take care of our youngest junior sister, Feng Yinli. So, in my previous life, when my junior sister rudely banged on my door, if it had been anyone else in the cultivation world, she would have lost at least half her life. Only I, considering that she had just entered the cultivation world, did not blame her. Instead, it was when she tearfully complained about how strict the master was, making her swing her sword 5,000 times a day, that I shared my own childhood experiences to comfort and advise her. When I first entered the mountain sect, the master was even stricter. I had to swing my sword 8,000 times a day, and every move had to meet the standard, or else I would be beaten. Not only that, but even before I had built my foundation, he made me fight demonic beasts at the foundation establishment stage. So, junior sister, the master is doing this for your own good. Look at me, your senior sister. I also trained diligently and endured hardships back then, and that's how I achieved my current level of cultivation. Little did I expect that after hearing these words, my junior sister immediately stood up, crying, and ran out of the mountain gate. She was captured by a demonic cultivator and nearly became a cauldron. Although she was saved and kept her life, her foundation was damaged, and she was filled with hatred toward me, until the eldest senior brother, Sai Yang, returned from his training and shattered my golden core with a single sword strike, saying, "Little junior sister is now excellent as well. You're just a golden core cultivator. What gives you the right to show off in front of her?" That was when I realized that what I thought were heartfelt words had been mistaken by my junior sister, who hadn't even completed her chi refining stage, as me showing off my golden core cultivation. All the subsequent torments began because of this. I wholeheartedly sought the Tao, hoping to ascend and become an immortal as soon as possible, yet because of one sentence, I suffered endless torment and died a miserable death. Perhaps it was the resentment and unwillingness in my heart that refused to dissipate, allowing me to be reborn back to this moment. The knocking at the door persisted for a long time before the little junior sister, biting her lip unwillingly, turned around and ran tearfully toward the school. Bumping right into Fang Jiu's arms, she looked up, her eyes brimming with tears, and cried out, "Third senior brother Tilda." Fang Jiu immediately felt a pang of heartache and asked, "Little junior sister, what's wrong with you?" The little junior sister's tears instantly streamed down her face as she poured out her grievances, saying, "Before our master went into seclusion, He instructed me to swing my sword 5,000 times every day. Today, after just 500 swings, my wrist is already swollen like this. Look, senior brother." After saying this, she rolled up her sleeve to reveal her red and swollen wrist, which was covered in bruises. Fang Jiu immediately exclaimed angrily, "How could our master be so cruel?" He lovingly applied ointment to his junior sister's wrist and then said, "Anyway, the master is in seclusion, so it won't matter if you rest for a couple more days, it won't delay anything. Besides, with your senior brother protecting you, what are you afraid of?" The junior sister pouted and said in distress, "But second sister is the same age as me, and she's already formed her golden core. While I haven't even built my foundation yet, I'm so useless." Fang Jiu said indifferently, "You are the esteemed little princess, while she is just an abandoned infant picked up by our master. How could she ever compare to you?" The little junior sister immediately beamed with joy, yet pretended to be annoyed and gave Fang Jiu a playful hit. "Don't you dare speak of senior sister like that." I couldn't bear to watch this affectionate display any longer and coldly withdrew my spiritual sense. So this is the standard answer, just keep comforting and pleasing her, never mind what the future holds. The injury on Feng Yinli's wrist looked frightening, but which sword cultivator didn't start by practicing the most basic moves? That injury shouldn't be nursed. You have to keep practicing until it no longer hurts, so that the wrist can adapt. If you give up halfway, you'll have to start all over again. But Fang Jiu was a spellcaster, he didn't understand these things. Only knowing various techniques, in my previous life, after my golden core was shattered, it was he who used his techniques to extract my spiritual roots, mending Feng Yinli's foundation and reducing me to a cripple, with no possibility of cultivation ever again, all because of a single sentence. They felt justified in using me as a stepping stone to pave Feng Yinli's path to success. Boundless hatred churned within my mind, those who harmed and tormented me in my past life. I will repay them one by one, every last one. I meticulously recalled everything that had happened in my previous life, my left hand unconsciously reaching up to touch the jade pendant worn over my heart. This was a spatial artifact I had accidentally obtained in the Taishen secret realm, though I had claimed ownership with a drop of blood. I couldn't enter the inheritance hall inside, only the spiritual spring in the outer area was available for my use. I flashed into the space and leaped into the spiritual spring. The surging spiritual energy continuously impacted my body's meridians, widening them. The pain was so intense that I nearly passed out, but I gritted my teeth and endured it. The speed at which I absorbed the spiritual energy was now more than 10 times faster than before, in my previous life. I had foolishly believed the mermaid's words and only drank a sip of the spiritual spring each day. Although it improved my physique, it was far from enough to cleanse my tendons and marrow, and my cultivation progressed at a snail's pace. After emerging from the space, I went into seclusion for another half-month, only stepping out once my realm had stabilized. I threw 3 stones into the deep pond at the back of the mountain one after another. The massive ripples shattered the water's surface, and a mermaid with a blue tail emerged. He was exceptionally beautiful, yet a trace of impatience flickered between his brows. The mermaid quickly swam to my side, swishing his large tail, and asked in a low voice, "Tan Jiu, are you trying to kill me? It's been so long since you last gave me the elixir." He is the mermaid companion of the Fusang tree that I rescued from the Taishen secret realm. I used top-grade elixirs to pull him back from the brink of death and allowed him to recuperate in the deep pond at the back of the mountain. Every mid-month, I have to bring him a top-grade spiritual pill to treat his injuries. I said with a smile, when Sang, "Your temper has grown fiercer lately. Spiritual herbs are already scarce, and on top of that, refining top-grade spiritual pills is truly no easy task." Seeing his entitled demeanor, I was reminded of the first day I met him in my previous life. He humbly tugged at the hem of my pants, his face full of pain as he begged me to save him, saying he was willing to be my servant for life, forever loyal. However, unbeknownst to me, he had gotten involved with Feng Yinli at some point and even offered my spatial jade pendant to her as a token of his affection. I was driven out of the mountain sect, truly and completely left with nothing. As always, I took out a pill and fed it to him. But this time, what was given was a poison that rotted the heart and lungs. The mermaid in the pool thrashed in agony, swinging her tail as she came ashore. His face was contorted, blood streaming from all 7 orifices, his eyes filled with confusion. Why did you kill me? Save me, Yu. You just gave me the wrong medicine, right? Yu, I'm in so much pain. When Sang weakly reached out to me, his sapphire eyes brimming with tears, fragile and full of affection. His beautiful blue tail was cut by sharp rocks, and blue blood seeped into the crevices, creating a scene both tragic and beautiful. The barrier of the inheritance hall within the jade pendant space can only be broken with the heart's blood of a mermaid. When Sang, you've kept me in the dark for so long. When Sang trembled, barely suppressing his pain as he said, How did you find out? I spoke slowly. I pitied your frail health and didn't form a master-servant contract with you. Yet you knew exactly how to use the space jade pendant and only had me drip blood to claim ownership. In my previous life, I was reduced to a cripple, and he came to see me. I thought he had come to save me, but instead, he reached out and took the jade pendant from my chest. Even congratulating himself for being cautious, he sneered at the life-saving favor I had done for him. Yet he opened his heart to the delicate Feng Yinli, even going so far as to cut his own flesh and shed blood to help her enter the inheritance hall. Fearing that Feng Yinli, with her weak cultivation, might be bullied, he took the initiative to propose a master-servant contract with her, so he could protect her at all times. Every aspect was considered with the utmost care. At the same time, I was driven out of the mountain sect, like a stray dog with no home to return to. So, the more when Sang struggled in agony before my eyes, the more delight I felt in my heart. Seeing that I remained unmoved, he roared furiously, I only kept it from you so I could survive. Besides, with the spiritual spring already in your possession, aren't you satisfied? When Sang was nearly exhausted, yet still clung to a sliver of hope, Save me, Yu. Once I recover from my injuries, I'll help you open the heritage hall. All right. No, I replied, once you recover, you'll just end up hovering around Feng Yinli again. You once swore a solemn oath to be my servant, yet from the very beginning, you kept secrets from me and were never loyal. I picked up the scale that had fallen from him and, under his desperate and helpless gaze, sliced open his chest. Those who are disloyal shall die. The merman's heartblood soaked the entire jade pendant, and I entered the space. The barrier of the inheritance law hall shattered, and a vast, ancient force of law surged forth, threatening to force me to my knees. My legs felt as heavy as 1,000 pounds, but I gritted my teeth and took one step, then another. This opportunity should have been mine, but in my previous life, Feng Yinli snatched it away. With my exceptional talent and a bright future ahead, I endured 20 years of arduous cultivation and dozens of life-and-death trials before finally forming my golden core, and within 3 years of entering the mountain sect. Feng Yinli stepped over my corpse to form her golden core and nurture her infant soul. I dedicated myself wholeheartedly to the mountain sect, sacrificing my own cultivation time to teach disciples on behalf of our master, and refining pills and medicines for my fellow sect members. But what did I gain in return? The various tragedies of my previous life flashed through my mind one by one, and I clenched my fists. In this life, I will live for myself. The door of the inheritance law hall opened, and the power of the laws dissipated. Feeling a weight lifted off me, I quickly walked inside. Inside the law hall, there were 8 chambers, their doors tightly shut. In the center of the hall floated a dull, ancient bronze sword, beneath which stood a deity statue also sculpted from bronze. This was actually the inheritance hall of Tongwu, the ancient god of swordsmanship, the foremost sword cultivator who had remained unmatched for tens of thousands of years. It was known that in his previous life, senior brother Sai Yang had only obtained a half-scroll remnant of Tongwu's ancient scriptures in a secret realm and managed to advance to the divine transformation stage. The bronze ancient sword floated before me, coming to a halt on its own. I grasped it, and a divine light exploded before my eyes, revealing a faint, indistinct figure in white robes with an unclear face. A deep, godly voice resonated. I have waited for so many years. And finally, someone slightly worthy has arrived. Below the true gods, all are but ants. Under his oppressive aura, I was drenched in sweat, barely able to straighten my back. You do have more backbone than the last one, the ancient god Tongwu continued. I had high hopes for you before, but a mere insect ruined it all. Now I'm giving you another chance, don't disappoint me again. With a flick of his finger, the ancient god Tongwu sent the memory pearl into my consciousness. And only then did I understand the truth of my previous life. I thought it was my words that caused the trouble, but I never expected that from the very beginning. Feng Yinli had been full of malice toward me. She was a traveler from another world who came with a system. Every time she conquered a man, she could take something from me. I felt guilty because she was captured by a demonic cultivator, but I never imagined she had already successfully seduced him, making him deliberately damage her foundation to gain more sympathy. She even made those men serve her, tormenting me without mercy. I thought my innocent junior sister was simple by nature, but in reality, she was a bloodsucker, clinging tightly to me. I treated her with such sincerity, yet she drained me to the bone, consuming me completely. I was so furious I nearly lost control of my cultivation, but it was the voice of the ancient god Tongwu that brought me back to my senses. Calm your mind. You may use everything in the Dharma Hall, but only by ascending to the higher realm will you have the qualification to become my disciple. The phantom of the ancient god Tongwu dissipated, yet that divine power still lingered in the void. I bowed toward the void. I will not disappoint the true god's expectations. I spent half a year cultivating the inherited heart method of the ancient god Tongwu, and only after my realm stabilized did I step out of my room, in front of the trial hall. A group of disciples surrounded Feng Yinli, whose smile was as radiant as a flower, continuously showering her with praise. Little junior sister is amazing. Even though she's only at the 5th level of chi refining, she's already tamed the ice serpent. That's truly incredible. A small, snow-white snake hung from her wrist, biting its own tail. Feng Yinli blushed, speaking with a shy and delicate tone. It's all thanks to third senior brother. I just mentioned how cute the little snake was, and he took me to tame the spirit snake. Standing beside her, Fang Jiu gave a faint smile. It's just a foundation establishment stage spirit snake. When I transcend the tribulation to become a deity in the future, I'll even catch a phoenix from the heavens for my junior sister to play with. The crowd's teasing grew even louder. I let out a cold laugh. Both of them immediately looked over, and the other disciples hurriedly picked up their swords, pretending to practice their forms. You really are ambitious, junior brother. You haven't even formed your nascent soul yet, and you're already worrying about what comes after becoming a deity. Fang Jiu slightly furrowed his brows and said in surprise, it's only been half a year, and you're already at the mid-golden core stage. Before I could answer, Feng Yinli enthusiastically rushed toward me, but I blocked her with my sword. She opened her innocent, clueless eyes, as if about to shed tears. Sister, I just haven't seen you in so long and wanted to get close to you. I never thought you'd despise me so much. I slung my sword behind my back and walked past her. I don't like being close to people. At the same time, I heard the voice of the system on her main conquest character. When Sang has died, the spatial jade pendant must be retrieved by the host personally. I swept my divine sense all over her body but found no trace of the system. It seems this thing must be hiding within her sea of consciousness. Feng Yinli quickly walked in front of me, her face full of surprise as she said, "Senior sister, this jade pendant on your chest looks so much like the keepsake my mother left me. It's just that A Li is foolish and doesn't know where I dropped the jade pendant." I lowered my head. The jade pendant, which should have been tucked close to my chest, had somehow been exposed. She stared at the jade pendant, utterly distraught, and said, "A Li is so useless. I can't even take care of mother's only keepsake." Looking at the varied expressions on the surrounding disciples' faces, I smiled. Feng Yinli might as well have directly pasted the word thief on my forehead. I said calmly, "You are indeed foolish." Feng Yinli widened her eyes, as if she couldn't believe what she had heard, and even asked in return, "What?" I repeated it again. I said, "You are foolish and stupid, weak and incompetent, utterly useless." My gaze swept over all the disciples standing before me, and no one dared to meet my eyes. The entire floating jade mountain. You're the only one still at the qi refining stage, even those who entered the sect after you have built their foundations. Tell me, aren't you a perfect fool? Feng Yinli's body trembled violently, tears streaming from her eyes. Fang Jiu stepped in front of her, shielding her, and scolded in a low voice, "Tan Jiu, that's enough. Junior sister has always been delicate and frail. It's normal for her to need time to adjust. Over a mere jade pendant, you hurl such vicious words. Do you even act like a senior sister should?" Feng Yinli kindly explained from behind him, "Senior sister, I know you definitely didn't take the jade pendant on purpose, but it's the only keepsake my mother left me. How about I exchange it for the glazed butterfly robe that our master gifted me?" Fang Jiu looked pained and disapprovingly said, "Junior sister, how can you compromise like this? Clearly, third senior brother, please don't say any more. Although the glazed butterfly robe is a high-grade magical artifact, in my heart it is not even 1/10,000th as important as my mother. The jade pendant is a keepsake from our junior sister's mother. Tan Jiu, I advise you to return it to her immediately, and we will let bygones be just that." The two of them played off each other, and Fang Jiu naturally reached out his hand, demanding it from me. I narrowed my eyes and asked, "Who are you talking to? Our cultivation levels are quite similar." Yet Fang Jiu has always been arrogant and looked down on me. In the past, I didn't mind it, but the more I indulged him, the more spoiled he became. "Fang Jiu, you keep mentioning Tan Jiu. What? Are you planning to betray the sect and no longer recognize me as your senior sister?" Fang Jiu didn't expect me to question him and said awkwardly, "I just really want to help junior sister find her jade pendant. I've been too kind to you all in the past, which is why you dare to shout at me like this today." I rubbed the patterns on the jade pendant with my fingers, without trying to prove my innocence. "Yu Chang. I am your second senior sister, Yu Zun. I am the acting sect leader appointed by our master. Third junior brother has shown no respect for his elders today. How should he be punished according to the mountain rules?" Fang Jiu, who had always been arrogant and conceited, stood rooted to the spot, glaring at me as if he wanted to bore a hole through me with his stare. Feng Yinli immediately knelt down, crying and pleading, "Second senior sister, please don't punish third senior brother. It's all my fault. I was so overwhelmed with missing my mother that I lost my head. Please punish me instead." I turned a deaf ear to her cries, keeping my eyes fixed on Fang Jiu as I said, "Your senior sister is asking you a question. What is the punishment for disrespecting your elders?" With rights come responsibilities, though I had never exercised them before. After waiting a while without a response from him, I cheerfully said, "If you don't know, then both of you can get the hell out of the mountain gate." I stepped past them and ascended the steps of the trial hall. There was a thud behind as Fang Jiu knelt straight on the ground, reporting to senior sister, "I deserve 10 lashes as punishment." I curled the corner of my mouth and casually pointed to a junior disciple to run an errand. The junior disciple brought the disciplinary whip. I flicked it through the air, creating a sharp crack that made everyone in the hall tremble. Do you accept your senior sister's punishment? Fang Jiu lowered his eyes. I accept. I then looked up at the dazed Feng Yinli beside him, tilting my head and asking, do you also want a taste of the whip? Feng Yinli's lips trembled slightly as she cast a deep glance at Fang Jiu before crawling away. I raised the whip and swung it down hard, leaving a stark blood-stained mark across Fang Jiu's back. This was the first time I had ever asserted my authority as senior sister to administer punishment. If I was called an abandoned child, then wasn't Fang Jiu one too? I picked him up from a plague-stricken village of the dead. Even my master said he was beyond saving, but to keep him alive, I forced myself to stay awake for a full month without closing my eyes. The spiritual energy on Fuyu Mountain is abundant, barely enough to sustain his life. If he were to leave Fuyu Mountain, Fang Jiu would likely struggle to survive. Yet another ungrateful wretch, that's all. After 10 lashes, his white robe was already tattered and soaked through with blood. Fang Jiu, his face pale, did not utter a single plea. Feng Yinli cried as she tried to help him up. My junior brother is exceptionally handsome. Even when being whipped, it was a scene that drew all eyes. The surrounding disciples were all captivated, unable to look away. Being publicly punished by someone he had always looked down upon was undoubtedly a great humiliation for Fang Jiu, but I felt his anger wasn't burning fiercely enough, so I decided to add more fuel to the fire. Hold on, I said, our senior sister kindly instructed you, aren't you going to say thank you? Thank you, senior sister, for your guidance. You will remember this for the rest of my life. Fang Jiu's fists clenched with a crackling sound as he kowtowed to me with a resounding thud. I accepted it with a clear conscience. Feng Yinli's gaze remained fixed on the jade pendant. I removed the jade pendant, revealing the characters Tai Shen on the back, and said with a smile, you have quite the eye, junior sister. This spatial jade pendant was obtained by me in the Tai Shen secret realm, and it contains a spiritual spring that can cleanse the meridians and marrow. I'm just not sure how it's related to your mortal mother. And you're even willing to exchange it for the glazed butterfly garment. How strange. In the 2 years you've been on the mountain, I've never seen you wear any jade pendant, yet today, as soon as you see mine, you claim to have one. If someone who doesn't know the truth hears this, they might think you're deliberately scheming to seize senior sister's opportunity. The surrounding disciples erupted in murmurs, and their gazes toward Feng Yinli instantly turned suspicious. Feng Yinli was frantically shouting at the system in her consciousness. Shouldn't she not have discovered the function of the jade pendant at this point? Is the female lead crazy? Such a valuable treasure should be kept hidden. How dare she reveal it in public? However, the only response she received was the mechanical voice of the system. Ding! Detected a drop in the favorability of the target character Fang Jiu. Please take timely measures to remedy the situation. Fang Jiu looked at her calmly, while Feng Yinli panicked and said, no, senior sister, that's not what I meant. You've misunderstood. I lost my jade pendant in the Imperial Palace. I was just startled because your pendant looks so similar to mine, and I ended up saying something foolish in my confusion. I nodded and said, be careful with your words and actions, junior sister. If it were anyone else, they wouldn't have such a good temper as I do. As always, I chose to forgive her. Only then did Feng Yinli relax and complain to the system, you gave me a scare. I thought the female lead had changed, but it turns out she's still as easy to fool as ever. Not only am I easy to fool, but I'm also going to give her a big gift. I walked down the steps and dangled the jade pendant in front of her. Little sister, isn't it the jade pendant you want? If you had just said so, your senior sister wouldn't have refused you. Little sister, do you want it? Feng Yinli swallowed her saliva and reached out her hand to take the jade pendant. I twisted my body around and instead placed the jade pendant right in front of Fang Jiu. I just don't like the glass butterfly robe. If you want to trade, Bring your myriad Tao cauldron instead. Junior brother, are you willing? Fang Jiu took out the myriad Tao cauldron from his storage bag and handed it to me, silently clenching the jade pendant tightly. Feng Yinli, her face full of emotion, reached out her hand. Thank you, senior brother. Fang Jiu, however, said, little junior sister, I will do my best to find your mother's jade pendant for you. Feng Yinli's smile froze on her face. I walked into the trial hall without a care in the world to collect my mission token. Such a great opportunity. Fang Jiu was not so foolish as to give it away willingly. The inheritance hall had long been moved into the small world within the ancient bronze sword, leaving only a spiritual spring within the jade pendant. Having already undergone body cleansing and marrow refinement, that spiritual spring was of no use to me anymore. Exchanging a useless jade pendant for the supreme-grade magical artifact, the myriad cauldron, would surely increase my success rate in alchemy from now on. Of course, the most crucial part was that I had added a drug to the spiritual spring that would amplify pain 100-fold. And I also tossed in a few packets of slow-acting poison. It all depends on whether Fang Jiu can withstand it. I walked out of the trial hall, and Feng Yinli was waiting outside. As soon as she saw me, she came forward to greet me. In her consciousness, the system had long informed her that I would be going on a long journey. It also instructed her to follow me closely, as only by confronting me could she win over other characters and gain affection points. Sister, are you going out? When will you be back? I put away the mission token and said coldly, what's it to you? She still wore a smile, but her eyes betrayed an anxiety she couldn't hide. Could you take me with you? Senior sister, no way. I don't want to get entangled with these rotten people and their messy affairs. Cultivation is my top priority. I reached out and lightly patted her cheek twice, firmly rejecting her, then rode my sword away. Feng Yinli could only stomp her feet on the spot. Watching the glowing dot of my departure grow smaller and smaller until it disappeared, I also considered directly killing Feng Yinli, but the ancient god Tongwu told me that the system parasitizing in her consciousness could take her to possess others and be reborn infinitely. Only by exhausting the system's energy can Feng Yinli truly be killed. Everything Feng Yinli possesses is sucking my blood. The farther I stay from Feng Yinli, the less energy her system can absorb. Most importantly, in my previous life, when senior brother Sai Yang returned from his training, he had already reached the stage of becoming a deity. If I cannot advance soon, I will inevitably have my golden core shattered and become a cripple. Just like in my past life, I refuse to be a lamb led to the slaughter. Sai Yang and I are destined for a life-and-death battle. This is the true reason I chose to leave Fuyu Mountain. I ventured into the depths of the abyss, narrowly escaping death to subdue the Red Lotus karmic flame. Paired with the myriad cauldron, I can now refine pills with almost no chance of failure. I spent 5 years in the 10-mile mountain range, battling spirit beasts by day and retreating to my small world to refine elixirs by night. Finally, the thunder tribulation of the nascent soul stage arrived. After 9 bolts of lightning struck, the golden core in my dantian gradually took on the form of an infant. Its face strikingly similar to mine. The area around me was cleared by the thunder tribulation, and rain poured down from the storm. I stood up, circulating my cultivation technique to feel the vast spiritual power of my nascent soul, recalling all the events of my past and present lives. My heart was filled with an immense calm. They hoped I would fall into the dust, but I was determined to soar 90,000 miles into the sky. Senior sister, a familiar female voice rang out. Feng Yinli, her face full of surprise, said, Senior sister, I actually ran into you here. It seems we have good luck. I cast a cleansing spell and replied, what a coincidence indeed, little junior sister. When I was undergoing my tribulation, Feng Yinli's system had already detected my location and sent her to find me. Behind her followed a man with a frail and gaunt figure, as if on the verge of death. staring at me with a venomous expression. I said, "Long time no see, third junior brother. I have to say, this guy's life is quite tough. Even after I poisoned him so many times, he still hasn't died. It's just that the golden core within his dantian has long been shattered beyond repair." Feng Yinli stuck out her tongue and said nonchalantly, "Wow, senior sister, I've only just built my foundation, and you've already advanced to the nascent soul stage." I watched coldly to see what trick she was going to pull. She warmly linked her arm with mine and said, "My palace isn't far from here. Since you've advanced in rank, why not come back with us to celebrate? Let my senior brother and I share in your joy." I smiled and replied, "Since you've extended such a warm invitation, I'd be rude to decline." Feng Yinli took me to a palace filled with peach blossoms and asked me to wait there. It wasn't until a figure dressed in bright yellow arrived and began expressing longing to the courtyard full of peach blossoms that I realized this was the former empress's residence. A forbidden place within the palace. Although I am a cultivator, I cannot casually take action against mortals. I didn't hide. Instead, I revealed myself proactively. The man in the dragon robe froze, as if looking through me at someone else. He murmured, "Meow meow." I curled my lips into a smile. Feng Yinli's setup of this feast was absolutely perfect. After 3 cups of tea had been drunk, Feng Yinli made a stunning entrance, dressed in brocade robes and a magnificent crown. She was followed by Fang Jiu and a tall, burly guard. Seeing that I was still sitting in my original spot, the guard loudly scolded, "How dare you? Why don't you kneel when you see the princess?" Feng Yinli had a smile on her lips and remained silent, allowing the guard to mock me. "If a dog barks at you, do you bark back at it?" "Of course not." I leisurely picked up the teacup and took a small sip. The guard drew his sword from its sheath, but Feng Yinli pressed his hand down and introduced, "Ren Ling. This is my senior sister." Naturally, there's no need to follow the customs and etiquette of the mortal world. Feng Yinli, sitting in the host's seat, asked curiously, "Senior sister, did you happen to run into anyone just now?" I placed the teacup on the table and answered truthfully, "The emperor has been here. He said there happens to be a good show, and it will only begin once you arrive, junior sister." Before Feng Yinli could ask any questions, 2 guards dragged in a disheveled woman and threw her to the ground. Feng Yinli exclaimed in shock, "Consort Yun." She abruptly stood up and scolded, "Who gave you the audacity to treat my wet nurse like this?" "It was I who gave it," Feng Yinli said helplessly. "Father, is there some misunderstanding?" The emperor strode into the hall, staring coldly at Feng Yinli. "Do not call me Father Emperor." Then, he crouched down, grabbed Consort Yun's hair, and forced her to lift her head to look at me. "Wretched woman, take a good look at who she is." Consort Yun's face was filled with terror as she screamed incessantly. Feng Yinli immediately rushed over to protect Consort Yun, but was kicked away by the emperor. She clutched her chest, glaring at me angrily. "Tan Zhio, what have you done? You should ask your wet nurse what good deeds she has done." I summoned the reincarnation mirror to trace Consort Yun's past, 30 years ago. The empress went to Ruining Temple to offer incense and pray for blessings, but encountered a month-long heavy rain. She had no choice but to give birth to the princess in the temple. Song Yun was a peasant woman from a village near Ruining Temple. The scholar she married died on his way to the capital for the imperial examination. Leaving only her and their newborn daughter, out of compassion, the empress allowed her to become the princess's wet nurse. Unexpectedly, she grew envious and, one late night, swapped the children only to be discovered by the empress. Song Yun, fearing the empress might cry out, smothered her to death with a pillow. Turning around, she met a pair of round, wide eyes. Deciding to go all the way, she threw the infant in swaddling clothes off the cliff, after the empress's death. The emperor was furious and executed everyone involved. Yet he spared only her, because the princess would only take her milk. After the princess was weaned, she even drugged the wine and sent it into the room of the emperor. who was drowning in grief over his deceased wife. Rising from a wet nurse to become the emperor's only concubine, Feng Yinli was stunned for a long time after reading it. No wonder the wet nurse treated me so well since I was a child, it turns out to be like this. Upon hearing this, the emperor's eyes turned bloodshot as he grabbed Song Yun by the neck. Unable to contain his overwhelming rage, he said with hatred, "How dare you switch my child and cause the death of my Miao Miao? In order to make me accept you, you willingly drank the infertility potion, vowing to raise the princess with all your heart. Yet the moment Miao Miao's child was born, you threw it off the cliff. You have deceived me for 30 years, you poisonous woman. Even if I were to cut you into 1,000 pieces, it would not be enough to quell the hatred in my heart." The emperor stood up, drew the sword from the guard, and with one strike, ended Song Yun's life. Feng Yinli cried out in despair. "Nanny," she wept and pleaded, "Father, how can you be so heartless? I have called you father for 30 years, and you just killed my mother like that." The emperor expressionlessly threw the knife to the ground. "The crime of deceiving the emperor warrants the execution of the entire clan. You should be grateful that you have entered the immortal sect." The emperor changed his tone and raised his hand, saying, "Go and inform the ancestors to remove Feng Yinli's name from the family register. She is forbidden from entering Jiaogua for the rest of her life." Feng Yinli's face was full of disbelief, tears streaming down in a continuous line. Fang Jiu held her by the waist, supporting her, and said gloomily, "Senior sister, with your actions deliberately tearing apart Ali's happy family, be careful, you'll face retribution. If it weren't for Fang Jiu's mention of an abandoned infant, I wouldn't have been curious enough to use the reincarnation mirror to explore my own origins." Hearing his words, I almost laughed out loud. I snapped my fingers, and the memories in the continued. The baby thrown off the cliff by Song Yun landed in the deep pool at the bottom of the valley. A female cultivator jumped down from a cave halfway up the mountain, picked up the baby from the water, poked its chubby cheek, and said with a smile, "So adorable, even such a cute baby was abandoned. But it's all right, from now on, you'll follow your master and cultivate properly. It's much better than being a mortal. Since you were found in this pool, how about we call you Tan's Hiu from now on?" I put away the cycle mirror and stood up, saying, "Feng Yinli has occupied my identity for decades, and today is truly a case of divine retribution, where justice is served. By the way, I must thank you, junior sister. If you hadn't insisted on me entering this peach forest, how would I have met the emperor and discussed these long-buried past events?" Feng Yinli's original intention was for me to appear in the forbidden area, provoking the emperor's wrath, and since I cannot take action against the human emperor, I would naturally be at her mercy. The entanglement of our story is far more dramatic than any cheap romance novel. Watching Feng Yinli's face grow increasingly pale, I clicked my tongue and continued to mock. "Perhaps this is what they call lifting a stone only to drop it on your own foot." Feng Yinli covered her face with a sob and ran out, with Fang Jiu quickly following after her. The emperor said, "Jiu, come with me to pay respects to your mother." I nodded, walked over to the pale-faced guard at the door, paused, and slowly said, "Since you so enjoy making people kneel before the princess, from now on you shall kneel before the princess's hall every day." The emperor's guards immediately stepped forward and broke his kneecaps, his agonized screams echoing continuously. 3 days later, I heard the voice of the Wind Whisper glass system again. "Ding, the target character Ren Ling has died. The conquest has failed. Please, host, quickly begin the next conquest." I bid farewell to the emperor and left on my sword, but at the border, I encountered a disheveled Feng Yinli and Fang Jiu, with a demonic cultivator closely pursuing them. When she saw me, her eyes immediately lit up. "Senior sister, save me. Why are they all so useless that I have to come to the rescue?" "I'm not saving them." Unexpectedly, Feng Yinli immediately put on the glazed butterfly garment to conceal her tracks. While Fang Jiu swiftly hid inside his spatial jade pendant, the Great Perfection Stage nascent soul demonic cultivator immediately attacked me, forcing me to draw my sword to defend myself. That demonic cultivator's every move was ruthlessly vicious. Someone transmitted a message to me with Schadenfreude. Senior sister, you'd better be careful. If that demonic cultivator catches you, you'll become his cauldron. You might as well self-destruct on the spot. The demonic cultivator's large hand came sweeping toward me. I smiled as I picked up the jade pendant that had fallen to the ground, crushing it to dust. Fang Jiu immediately tumbled out from that spatial realm and landed right on top of Feng Yinli. Both of them had revealed their forms. I summoned the myriad cauldron, sealing both Feng Yinli and myself inside, and said leisurely, "Junior brother, your words are premature." Fang Jiu pounded heavily on the cauldron, shouting, "No! This is my magical artifact. Senior sister, let me in." I remained completely unmoved and said, "Junior brother, you are a man. Isn't this the perfect moment for you to play the hero and save the beauty?" The next second, the demonic cultivator's large hand seized him, lifting him up and carrying him away, leaving only me and the distraught Feng Yinli behind. The one who should have been taken was her. Not only could I make the senior brother and junior brothers resent me, but I could also use this opportunity to win over the demonic cultivator. Such a perfect plan was ruined by Fang Jiu, who deliberately wanted to make things difficult for me, and both of us ended up suffering the consequences. Feng Yinli questioned, "Senior sister, how could you be so heartless as to just stand by and watch third senior brother get captured?" I put away the myriad cauldron and turned my head to say, "Otherwise, how about you get captured by a demonic cultivator, so we can start the next conquest?" Feng Yinli's pupils slightly contracted as she feigned calmness, forcing a smile. "Senior sister, I don't know what you're talking about." I held the sword with one hand and said coldly, "Stop pretending to be crazy and foolish in front of me." When Sang, Fang Jiu, Ren Ling, that demonic cultivator, and the senior brother are all your targets to conquer, aren't they? Feng Yinli took a step back. "How did you know, senior sister? Do you want to kill me?" She frantically called out to the system in her consciousness, seeking a solution. A thunderous explosion echoed in the distance. Fang Jiu had self-destructed. Feng Yinli's system continuously broadcast notifications. Ding! The target characters Fang Jiu and Mo Yuan have died. The mission to win them over has failed. Please, host, quickly begin the next attempt. I stepped closer to her. One step at a time. Me, kill you. Everything you have was gained by sucking my blood to win over these men. With your foundation establishment level cultivation, I could crush you with a single finger. Feng Yinli was puzzled. Then what do you want to do? Because the person I want to kill has arrived. I smiled and channeled my magic to block the sudden, overwhelming strike of the sword, forced back several steps by the sheer force of the sword energy. A figure descended from the horizon, riding on a sword. As handsome as a deity, his face icy cold, yet his gaze softened only when it met Feng Yinli's eyes. "Ali, I'm back." Feng Yinli threw herself into his arms with a face full of grievance, calling out, "Eldest senior brother, you've finally come." I've advanced to the divine transformation stage, which took some time. But fortunately, I'm not too late. Senior brother Sai Yang finally deigned to look at me, but his gaze was as if he were looking at a lifeless object. He spoke, "Tan Zhio, you still dare to lay hands on Ali? Truly, you never change your wicked ways." His life-bound sword hovered at his side, continuously emitting a sharp, ringing sound. "So what if you're a nascent soul? I crippled you once, and I can do it again." It seems he has also been reborn, and has reached the divine transformation stage earlier than in his previous life. He tried to suppress me with the pressure of the divine transformation stage, but I gripped my sword and struck. Overestimating your own abilities, Sai Yang waved his hand to disperse the sword energy, threw a protective shield over Feng Yinli, and urged his life-bound sword to charge at me. I am now at the early nascent soul stage, one realm lower than him, barely able to protect myself. However, Sai Yang had run out of patience and straightforwardly locked onto my nascent soul. His life-bound sword came thrusting towards me. I summoned the myriad Tao cauldron to take temporary refuge. Sai Yang stepped through the void, striding with an air of arrogance as he declared, like an ant struggling in its death throes, "Today, I shall let you witness the inherited sword technique of the ancient god Tongwu. As a sword cultivator, you won't die in vain." Sai Yang's life-bound sword expanded tenfold in size. Hovering above the myriad Tao cauldron, I put away the myriad cauldron, took out the ancient bronze sword, and raised my head, saying, "The inherited sword technique of the ancient god Tongwu, what a coincidence. I've also learned a couple of moves." Sai Yang wore a look of assured victory, his tone dripping with pity, wielding a short, shabby little sword, and still daring to boast that you've learned the sword technique of the ancient god Tongwu. Do you think the inheritance is some common, worthless thing? I did not answer, continuously drawing spiritual energy from the miniature world within the ancient bronze sword. My cultivation surged, reaching the peak of the nascent soul stage. Tongwu, the ancient god, once slew a tribulation transcender with a single strike during his nascent soul stage, leaving his name for eternity. Today, I shall follow in the footsteps of the ancients. After all, we sword cultivators excel at challenging those above our level. I raised my sword to meet Sai Yang's massive lifebound sword. The clash of sword energy shook the earth, carving a 10-mile-long ravine in its wake. His life-bound sword shattered like paper when it clashed with the ancient bronze sword. Sai Yang was struck by the backlash, spitting out a mouthful of blood, unable to regain his composure for a long time. "How is this possible? How could this be?" I calmly said. "Senior brother, your path to immortality in your previous life was still too smooth. Losing to me, a mere nascent soul cultivator, despite being at the divine transformation stage, is not a disgrace, after all. All you obtained was an incomplete manual, while I received the complete inheritance of the ancient Tongwu deity. And remember, today you wielded your sword for Feng Yinli, but I am different. I fight for myself. Senior brother, your path is wrong. You will never attain immortality." Sai Yang's eyes streamed with bloody tears as he knelt on the ground like a statue. Feng Yinli cried out in anguish for her senior brother. I sheathed the ancient bronze sword and summoned the red lotus karmic fire to lay him to rest. Ding! The mission to conquer Sai Yang has failed due to his death. Feng Yinli helplessly collapsed to the ground, and I shook my head helplessly, saying, "See, the man you chose has died again." The system expended immense energy to deceive the heavenly laws and bring Sai Yang back from his previous life, only for him to meet his end in less than half an hour after his appearance. Feng Yinli glared at me, her entire body trembling with rage. The mechanical voice of the system in her consciousness continued to ring out, "Ding! It has been detected that all the targets to be conquered have died. The mission of the supporting female character's counterattack has failed. Host elimination countdown, 60, 59. Feng Yinli commanded the spirit snake on her wrist to attack me, but before it could even reach my feet, it was devoured by the red lotus karmic fire, leaving not even a trace of ash behind. "Even her death throes are so laughable," I said slowly. "You relied on your system to suck my blood and charm men, delighting in watching them swarm around you, fighting and vying for your affection. You thought that by winning these men's love, you could have everything. You believed you could rely on men's love for a lifetime. But now they're all dead. What do you have left?" she retorted. "What do you know? You're cold-blooded and heartless. Just jealous that I've won the affection of our senior brothers, Tanjio. No one will ever love you in this lifetime." As the system counted down to 10, Feng Yinli lunged at me, but I caught her by the neck with one hand. Her face turned crimson. I said, "You've never had a self of your own in your entire life. So you wouldn't understand that the greatest love in this world is self-love. As soon as the words left my mouth, the system obliterated Feng Yinli. It tried to escape from her body, but my red lotus karmic fire burned it to nothingness. I traveled the world for 50 years, and only returned to Fuyu Mountain when I reached the great perfection stage of transcending tribulations. On the verge of ascension, the eldest senior brother had died, and a new junior disciple affectionately called me eldest senior sister, welcoming me back to my old residence. The master emerged from seclusion and spoke with me through the night. Upon learning of my past life experiences, she grew even more furious. She said, "Sai Yang is a rare fool, and Fang Jiu is even more ungrateful and treacherous. Excessive kindness only invites bullying. Fools deserve to die, and the wicked should not be spared either." My only concern was my master. After all, she raised me since I was a child. Now, after hearing her words, my heart felt clear and serene. So I simply underwent the heavenly tribulation to ascend at floating Jade Mountain. My master said with a face full of relief, "I never expected that you would ascend before me. It seems I should also take a journey into the mortal world." I felt a bit reluctant in my heart. "Master, I will wait for you in the upper immortal realm." My master nodded and waved her hand at me, saying, "Hurry along." I stepped onto the ascension guide and flew up to the upper immortal realm. Leaning against the ascension platform was a man dressed in white. He took a sip of wine, squinting slightly as he said, "Your bone structure is barely passable, but your temperament is quite good." I immediately bowed respectfully. Lord Tongwu, although I had never seen his true face. This carefree demeanor could belong to none other than Lord Tongwu. "Little girl, why so formal?" Words cannot express the gratitude in my heart, so I can only say, if not for you giving me the chance to live another life, Jia would never have been fortunate enough to ascend. The ancient god Tongwu smiled faintly and said, "The past cannot be pursued, but the future is still full of hope. Come, let me show you the upper immortal realm." He rode his sword ahead, and I followed closely behind, admiring the incredibly magnificent scenery of the upper immortal realm. I thought, in this upper immortal realm, the story that belongs to me might have just begun, and so the first story ends. What do you all think? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoyed it, please give this video a like. Now, here's the second story. I have lost my chastity. My stepsister harmed me. My mother knew it clearly, yet she still wanted her to marry the crown prince in my place. The day before her wedding, I awakened. Only then did I realize I was the cannon fodder supporting female character. After my half-sister became the crown princess, I would be the first one to die. Me, whatever, since I'm going to die anyway. Let everything be destroyed, including me. Everyone can go to hell. I am the legitimate daughter of the Prime Minister, and in a few days, I am to marry the Crown Prince. According to the original path, I was destined to walk the road toward becoming the Crown Princess, and eventually, the Empress, to become the most esteemed woman in the entire nation. But just yesterday, I lost my chastity. My mother pulled me out of the brothel and, gripping my arm tightly, said, "The Crown Prince will not want a woman who has lost her purity. The inspection is tomorrow. If you are rejected, our entire Song family is finished." After much thought, she came up with a terrible idea. Song Wan bears a striking resemblance to you, about 80% alike. Why not let her marry the Crown Prince in your place? You rarely go out normally, so as long as she imitates you well enough, no one will notice. Ning Ning, from now on, you'll have to endure staying hidden in the mansion. Mother will take care of you for the rest of your life. I cried my heart out. But mother, it was Song Wan who caused me to end up in the brothel. Mother's eyes were red-rimmed. She bit her lip hard and said, "I will settle the score with her for what she did to you. But right now resolving the marriage matter is the most important thing. You should rest first." I clutched the hem of her clothes, pleading desperately, "Mother, she harmed me like this. She deserves to be executed. How can she just get the position of crown princess for nothing? I can't accept it. Then what do you suggest? The Song family will never give up the position of crown princess. Is this position more important than your daughter's life? Mother pulled her sleeve from my grasp, gave me a deep look, and only said, "Rest now. There's no need for you to worry about what comes next." Watching my mother's resolute back as she walked away, I leaned against the corner of the bed, my heart as cold as ashes. I thought I would lie awake all night. Yet, in my drowsiness, I ended up having a dream. I dreamed that Song Wn put on the wedding dress and married the crown prince in my place. On the day she returned to her parents' home, I suddenly rushed out and attacked her fiercely. "It's all your fault that I'm now like a gloomy rat, unable to see the light of day. Now that you've managed to deceive everyone, you should return my position to me." Song Wn took 2 steps back, her former timid and respectful gaze toward me completely gone. She said with disgust, "Father, Mother, since my half-sister has gone mad, don't let her out anymore. We don't want her offending some noble in the future or saying something wrong that brings trouble to our Song family. Now that I am the crown princess, not just anyone can afford to offend me. My parents, who once doted on me, stood behind me. They looked at me with cold indifference, then they ordered the maids and servants to lock me in the backyard. Before long, Song Wn pushed open the courtyard gate and looked down on me with contempt. "Song Jining, do you hate it? You know full well that I was the one who schemed to ruin your chastity, yet you can only watch helplessly as I trample over you. You, who have enjoyed favor and glory since childhood, losing all of this must be unbearable, right?" She grabbed my chin, her sharp nails digging into my flesh. She sneered coldly. "I truly wish you could see with your own eyes the day I become the most honored woman. Unfortunately, keeping you alive is ultimately a hidden danger. Don't blame me if you must blame someone. Blame your beloved parents. After all, everything I have now was handed to me by them." After saying this, she ordered the old woman beside her to force me to drink a cup of poisoned wine. As the poison took effect, I saw Mother standing not far beyond the courtyard gate, yet her expression was only one of sorrow as she watched it all unfold, never stopped. When I opened my eyes again, my back was drenched in cold sweat. The maid attending to me had already left at some point. A figure in dark red stood by the bedside. Song Wn had her back to me, trying on my wedding dress. Her face, which bore a 70 to 80% resemblance to mine, was full of smugness. "Song Jining, you're awake. Come and see how perfectly your wedding dress fits me, as if it were tailor-made for me. I've loved the crown prince for 10 years. And now I'm finally about to get my wish. I really have to thank you." I stared at her coldly. "I won't let you marry the crown prince." The scenes from the dream are vivid and clear. Though I don't know if it was a dream or a premonition of the future, but I know that if she truly becomes the crown princess, I will indeed have no way to survive. Song Wn turned her head and let out a scornful laugh. "Song Jining, haven't you realized yet? The Song family only needs the position of the crown princess. They don't care who fills it. Now that you've lost your chastity, you've lost your value. Do you think you still have any say in the Song family?" As she spoke, she suddenly raised her hand and slapped me hard across the face. Caught off guard, I took the blow, and my cheek immediately swelled and turned red. Song Wn laughed sharply. "Do you believe me when I say that even if I stepped on your face right now, no one in the Song family would dare to punish me?" As soon as she finished speaking, hearing the commotion inside, the maids immediately pushed the door open and entered. However, after seeing this scene, they exchanged a knowing glance and quietly retreated. My eyes reddened with anger. "Song Wn, I have never mistreated you. Why are you doing this to me? Who told you to be born with such a fortunate life, living smoothly for 15 years? Now it's my turn to enjoy it. Don't worry. I know you don't love the crown prince, but I do. I will surely take your place and love him well, living in perfect harmony with him." After saying that, She flung my hand away fiercely and was about to leave the room wearing my wedding dress. I stared at her triumphant back, my heart gradually sinking. The commotion in the room was so loud. Although the maids didn't dare to make a sound, someone was bound to report it to my parents. But it's been so long, and they still haven't shown up. I suppose they've tacitly approved of what Song WN has done to me. How laughable. They always claim to dote on me, love me, and have my best interests at heart. Yet they completely disregard my life and death. Now, even my life is at stake. What chastity, what reputation. To hell with it all. With that thought, I suddenly lunged forward, pinning Song WN to the ground. She seemed not to have expected me to fight back, or perhaps, she was certain that I wouldn't dare to resist at all. Even as I pinned her down firmly, she merely laughed triumphantly, speaking with absolute confidence. Do you hate me, Song Jining? But what can you do about it, now? I am the only one in the Song family who can become the crown princess. If you dare lay a hand on me, your days in the Song residence will be far more miserable than mine ever were. As she spoke, she lifted her chin high, taunting me. Come on, if you have the guts, then slap me back. But don't blame me for not warning you. My face is tied to the Song family's honor and disgrace. I dare to hit you. But do you dare to hit me? I lowered my head, staring at her expressionlessly. If a maid had witnessed this scene, she would surely have screamed in shock. When had the once dignified and gentle young lady ever shown such a fierce expression? But only I know, my heart is incredibly calm. I didn't pay any attention to Song Wan's provocation. I didn't even talk back. She told me to hit her. But how could I possibly hit her? This solves nothing. I just stared at her expressionlessly. Then, slowly, I pulled out the fruit knife I had hidden in my sleeve. The blade was extremely sharp. I aimed at Song Wan's high-raised neck and, without hesitation, struck down with utmost precision. Blood gushed out, splashing onto my face. Song WN opened her mouth wide in disbelief. She wanted to say something, but no sound came out. She just kept her hands tightly around my neck. I didn't even blink. I pulled out the dagger and stabbed again. This time, she didn't even have the strength to scratch my face, so unwilling that he stopped breathing without even closing his eyes. I let go of the dagger and sat back on the bed. The horizon gradually began to glow with the first light of dawn. Miss Song, the matron from the palace has arrived. Are you ready? The maids and old women pushed the door open and entered, only to be met with the bloody scene, which frightened them into screaming and fleeing in panic. Madam, it's terrible. Something has happened. Something awful. The maid's screams quickly drew my parents over. This time, they arrived rather quickly. When they saw the bloody scene in the room, both of them turned pale with terror, unable to believe their eyes. Even my father couldn't help but twitch his eyelids, looking at me with deep fear in his eyes. I sat beside Song Wan's corpse, looking at them with a mocking expression on my face. After a long while, my father suddenly rushed forward, raising his hand as if to slap me, but upon seeing my blood-soaked, terrifying appearance, his hand froze mid-air. You bastard, wretched daughter. How could you commit such a mad and brutal act? Are you trying to drive the Song family to ruin? I sneered, curling the corner of my mouth mockingly. By placing my enemy on the throne of the crown princess, are you not also pushing me to the brink of despair? He was speechless with anger, glaring at me, yet unable to utter the hypocritical words, I will protect you. My mother snapped back to reality, weeping with tears streaming down her aged face. You've done a terrible thing. With Song WN dead, how are we going to explain it to the crown prince? If we can't produce a suitable candidate for the crown princess and anger the emperor, do you think you'll still have a way out? Ningning, how could you be so foolish? It's better for you alone to suffer than to bring death upon the entire Song family. I let out a cold laugh. But why should I be the one to suffer this injustice? Yet they are right. I killed Song WN precisely to survive. But if the emperor were to punish us, it would also mean certain death. So I calmly said, Why panic? It hasn't been exposed yet. I was originally the one meant to marry the crown prince, so I'll just proceed according to the plan and enter the palace as scheduled. But, you've already lost your chastity. What if they find out during the inspection? I have my ways. In such a situation, I could still curl the corners of my lips and manage to smile. But this smile, in their eyes, appeared utterly terrifying. My father hesitated as he looked at me. Are you serious? I let out a scornful laugh, stood up, and said, prepare my bath and do my makeup. They watched my resolute back, hoping against hope. Perhaps I truly had a way, yet no one noticed that when I turned around. There was a calm determination to die in my eyes. According to the prophetic dream I had last night, the crown prince only intended to use the Song family. If he hadn't fallen in love with Song Wn later, he would have found an excuse to eliminate the Song family after ascending the throne once their usefulness was over. I know I don't have what it takes to make the crown prince fall in love with me. In the end, it's still a death sentence. Killed by Song Wn, killed by my parents. Killed by the crown prince, or killed by the emperor. It seems there's no difference anymore. But I won't suffer alone. If I'm not having a good time, no one else will either. Half an hour later, with my parents forcing smiles, I boarded the palace carriage that had come to fetch me. Today is not for marriage, but for the physical examination in the palace. But the crown prince still came to the palace gate to pick me up. When he saw me, a gentle smile lifted the corners of his lips, and he said, are you tired? Would you like to rest for a while in the Eastern Palace later? I heard this and glanced at him expressionlessly. The crown prince, however, misunderstood my meaning. He winked at me suggestively. I know you're shy, but we're in the palace. As long as I don't say anything, no one would dare to gossip. Besides, it's not like you haven't before. There's no need to be afraid. He spoke with hesitation, but I instantly understood what he meant. As the legitimate daughter of the Prime Minister, I have rarely appeared in public in the imperial city over the years. That's why my parents dared to let Song Wn, who bears a 70 to 80% resemblance to me, impersonate me. But only I know that I used to meet with the crown prince in private quite often. Those unfamiliar with me might not be able to distinguish between my appearance and Song Wan's, but the crown prince should not. Yet in my prophetic dream, the crown prince knew full well that Song Wn was not me, yet he still bestowed upon her the honor of being the crown princess. The tenderness in his eyes at this moment is not directed at me, but at the title of crown princess. I coldly sized up Crown Prince Li Hao. To be honest, he only managed to secure this position by resorting to those dirty tricks behind the scenes with my father. My parents never kept these matters hidden from me. After all, I was destined to become the crown princess. So we were all in the same boat. I used to think I was irreplaceable, but now I realize that the Song family could discard me, and if the crown prince ascends the throne in the future, the first one he would abandon would still be me. Thinking of this, I coldly withdrew my gaze and said, no need. Li Hao was taken aback for a moment, sensing my coldness, and felt too embarrassed to insist. He said, very well, after you've been examined, I will send you back to your residence as soon as possible. I shook my head again. There's no need for an examination. Li Hao asked, why not? With an expressionless face, I spoke in a tone as casual as if I were saying we're having white rice for lunch, and said, I am no longer a virgin, so there is no need for an examination. Li Hao, he widened his eyes in shock. What did you say, Jining? Are you joking with me? I turned my head, stared into his eyes, and explained with great patience. No, Your Highness the Crown Prince, last night I was framed by Song Wn, abducted to a brothel, and have already lost my innocence. Therefore, there is no need for you to waste any more time. Li Hao, his eyes widened once more, feeling as if darkness was closing in around him, and the world became a blur. He breathed rapidly, struggling to speak. Song Wn, Song Wn. I thought he was going to ask me about Song Wn, so I very honestly told him. She's dead. I killed her with my own hands. Li Hao, we stood at the palace gate, staring at each other. After a long while, the shock on his face slowly turned into fury. How dare you? Your Song family truly has no regard for me. Do you intend to present a woman who has lost her virtue to be my crown princess? I let out a soft "oh" and tilted my head slightly. At this point, according to the principles of propriety, I should understand him. After all, the world values a woman's purity more than her life, let alone when he is the crown prince. But I have already experienced death once, and now I am still treading the line of death. Understand, it doesn't exist. So I asked in surprise, Your Highness, why are you so angry? Could it be that your chastity is still intact? Upon hearing this, Li Hao was momentarily stunned. He even forgot his anger and questioned me along my line of thought. What chastity? I am a man. What does chastity have to do with me? Who said the word chastity must only apply to women? Since you yourself are no longer pure, what right do you have to demand it of me? But you have been touched by others. You are impure. Do you think I would want an impure woman? What does purity even mean? The confusion on my face grew deeper as I followed the crown prince's gaze, letting it settle between his legs. Your Highness, when you speak of purity, are you referring to that part of my body being touched by someone? But that part is merely an organ. How is it any different from hands, feet, eyes, ears, or mouth? My hands have been touched by my parents, maids, and nannies. My eyes have seen everyone. If we follow your logic, then all women are impure. You. The crown prince's face turned livid with rage, his chest heaving violently. He had never heard such shocking and outrageous remarks. Naturally, he had no idea how to refute them. He pointed at my nose, glared at me for a long moment, and finally flung his sleeve in anger, saying, in short, I will not marry you, since your Song family has insulted me in this way. Just wait for the emperor to pass judgment. Li Hao stormed off toward the Chengqian Hall. The emperor was holding his morning court session there. With every step he took, it felt as if I were one step closer to death. I watched Li Hao's resolute and ruthless back, my gaze gradually darkening. If it weren't for Li Hao, why would Song Wn have framed me? Why would I have to suffer like this? Now, I have no way out. He relied on the Song family to become the crown prince, and after using me, he didn't even leave me a way to survive. How could I not hate him? I followed the crown prince all the way to the imperial garden. The maids and eunuchs we passed along the way, knowing the relationship between the crown prince and me, thought we were having a secret rendezvous, fearing they might know too much and lose their heads at any moment. They all kept their distance from us, afraid of seeing something. When I reached the edge of the pond, I suddenly pulled the hairpin from my head, because I was too close to him, and Li Hao had no guard up against me. Thus, my hairpin effortlessly pierced the back of his neck. Blood instantly spurted out. Li Hao was incredulous. He turned around and pushed me away fiercely. Song Jining, have you gone mad? How dare you assassinate me? Guards. Although my strike had hit its mark, but Li Hao had after all practiced martial arts, and was a man. By the time I wanted to strike again, it was already too late. Holding the hairpin, I watched as his blood flowed more and more, and I started laughing like a madwoman. Li Hao's steps were unsteady, and he barely managed to call for help. I had no intention of covering his mouth. Useless. Just then, footsteps could be heard not far away. Li Hao leaned against the bridge's railing, glaring at me fiercely. Song Jining, you have some nerve. How dare you attempt to assassinate a member of the royal family? Your entire Song clan will be executed to the 9th degree. It doesn't matter, I'm going to die anyway. So whether it's the Song family or you who accompanies me in death makes no difference. I have already given up resisting. The footsteps are getting closer and closer. A group of people rushed over in a hurry. I thought I would be captured on the spot, but the next second, a clear female voice spoke, blatantly lying with her eyes wide open. Oh my God, the crown prince has been assassinated in the imperial garden. And he died with his eyes wide open. The killer ran too fast. Flying eagle, go after him quickly. Li Hao, who still had a breath left and was waiting to be rescued. I turned my head and looked at the newcomer. It was actually Imperial Consort Xu Rong. She gave me a reassuring look, then directed her subordinates to handle the scene in an orderly manner. Li Hao's blood continued to flow, and he had already lost the strength to struggle or call for help. He could only crawl unwillingly toward the Imperial Consort. Yet the Imperial Consort stood where she was, watching the scene with a cold gaze, until Li Hao's blood had completely drained. And he no longer drew breath. The Imperial Consort made a meaningful look. Then, a piercing scream that shook the heavens and earth echoed through the entire Imperial Garden. Help, there's an assassin. Half an hour later, the Imperial Noble Consort and I knelt in front of Chengqian Hall. My gaze was vacant, and I remained expressionless. The Imperial Noble Consort, her face full of terror, spoke through tears. This is exactly what happened, Your Majesty. The assassin was too audacious. If I hadn't arrived in time, the daughter of Prime Minister Song would have also fallen victim. Look, the young lady is utterly terrified. The Empress' face was ashen as he sat on the throne, not uttering a single word. Only the Empress wept with a broken voice, demanding, how is this possible, in broad daylight? And in the Imperial Garden at that, what assassin could possess such skill? Moreover, the murder weapon was clearly Miss Song's hairpin. What does this have to do with an assassin? According to the maids and eunuchs in the Imperial Garden, they only saw Miss Song and no assassin.